Hey everyone, hope you're having a great day. I'm Jeremy. Welcome back to the channel. I hope you're finding it useful. Of course, this is one of the first videos, so you'll see as we continue on in our journey that you're going to learn a lot, hopefully, if you stick with it. This episode is for very beginners. This is talking about database table basics. This channel is Greatest Access Tutorial Ever, where we do this in Access, but a lot of this knowledge will carry over to any database system you choose to use. I just use Access because A, I love it. I'm a full-time Access dev, and it's basically a full stack kind of setup to where you can go all the way from code to interface. You don't have to switch between web pages, et cetera, et cetera. So Access is kind of a one-stop package, and frankly, is one of the best things Microsoft has ever developed. So anyway, this is episode 1.1. I hope you find it useful. We're talking about tables. Here are the topics we're going to go over. What are database tables, how to make and access database tables, the basic parts of a table, and then we're going to look at a spreadsheet versus a table. When you first see a table, you're like, oh, this is just a spreadsheet in Excel. And then you learn you're horribly mistaken. But don't worry, we'll cover all of that good stuff. So what are tables? Tables are where databases hold data, right? They're the primary containers of data so that the database can feed you that data. Now, sometimes it feeds you that data through, let's say, a web page. So if you're on Amazon, Google, et cetera, and you're doing searches for products, searches for information, you're pulling data from massive databases with many tables, probably petabytes of data, and it's being displayed to you through a web page. Now, Access works a little differently in that it's displaying data through an Access form. That's a future episode. But the concept's the same. So these tables are basically, think of them as just as files that hold specific types of data. Now, unlike your typical spreadsheet that you may run into, especially in a corporate environment where the spreadsheet can have anything, any kind of data, anywhere it wants, database tables are much more structured and they're very specific, and there's reasons for that we'll get into in future episodes when you really start to learn the power of database tables. And so, for instance, if I was talking about people, colors, shapes, and animals in a typical spreadsheet, that might just be all on one line. I might put some in a spreadsheet, in different locations, etc. But database tables don't typically work like that. So they're going to be very specific about the subject of the table. What are you talking about? Am I talking about people, colors, shapes, or animals? Those are four different tables typically in a database. And again, designs will vary. These are just good rules of thumb. Now, how do you make an Access database table? Well, that's pretty simple. Let's switch over to our laptop screen. So here is the screen you're presented. Now I'm using Access 365. Should be very similar if you're using Office 2016. 2013 may have some changes. It's been a long time since I've used 2013. But typically when you start Access, you're presented with this kind of intro form of how to make a database. I'm sorry, making a new database. Now you will see some templates over here. I generally avoid those because if you do not know how to use a database, you're just going to get lost immediately for the most part. Instead, there's this icon called blank database. Simply single click it. You're going to be asked where you want to save the database. Now, oftentimes, depending on your PC setup, whether it's at home or at work, you may be asked to save to a Microsoft OneDrive location. I personally would not recommend that, only because OneDrive is kind of a synchronized folder slash location, a network cloud location, if you will. And your database, as you develop, may or may not play nice with that. It just really depends on your setup. So what I would do personally, again, this is me, is if I'm going to make a new database, I would make it local to my C drive, somewhere in my documents folder, not OneDrive documents, but your actual documents folder. So if you hit the browse and you go over here to documents, right, just somewhere in your documents, type the name of the database, hit OK, hit create, and you're unceremoniously dumped into this what looks like an Excel spreadsheet, right? And so if you try to start typing in here, you're going to fail miserably. Well, you won't. Actually, you can start typing weird stuff, but this is kind of confusing. So let's X out of this tab. Let me switch over to my actual tutorial file. Bear with me. Okay, here we go. This is the same thing as before. It's just set up to always show on OBS when I switch windows. So you've just closed that database. Now, how do we actually create the database? Well, it's pretty simple. I'm going to show you the difference between table and table design. You typically always want to go to table design. So you want to hit the create to go to the create ribbon in Office. Now, if you don't see the ribbon, you may need to expand it by clicking here and pinning that. You typically want that pinned for now. You want to go to the Create tab, and you're presented with two buttons, actually three. SharePoint list, we're going to skip that for now. We probably won't get into that in this course, only because I don't have a personal SharePoint site, but I do link to SharePoint in my active databases at work. Okay, so you'll see table and you'll see table design. I would highly recommend just going to table design. Once you click that, you're presented with this weird looking grid. Now, this looks like a spreadsheet, but it's not. You're designing a database table. Now, what this means is the fields that you type in this vertical column here will end up as the columns that go across when you're looking at it in like a spreadsheet mode, right? So for instance, if I type in the field is called first name, and now you'll notice immediately when you're creating a field in an access table, or any table really, you should define the type of data that field is. So for instance, first name is going to be short text. In this world, short text is about 255 characters max, which should suffice for most people. Let's do last name, also a short text, and I'm going to do age. And we're going to make that a number. If you click this drop down, you'll get to pick what kind of data type you want to choose. Don't worry if you don't know what that is now. We'll go over those in future episodes. But for right now, just pick number. You want to, now it's going to bug you for a primary key once you save this. So watch this. If we go to home, oh, sorry, actually, if we just go to, you can either right click and hit save. If you try to go to datasheet view, it's going to ask you to save anyway because we've made modifications to this table. Or at the bottom right, you'll also see a button that says datasheet view. It's going to ask you, do you want to save? Yes. Now, when saving a table, oh, you can't see oh, that's weird, the window. When saving a table, I always recommend you prefix the table name with TBL. That's me personally. I'm going to do TBL people. It's going to bug me about the fact that there's no primary key. And again, you can't see that window, which is a shame. You know what? I'm going to switch over to my laptop screen so you can. So here it is. It's bugging me about a primary key. Right now, I'm going to hit no, but usually, almost always, you want a primary key. But for now, this is just the intro. Now it switches over to datasheet mode, which looks much like an Excel spreadsheet, but it's not actually a spreadsheet. And so if I start typing my name and my age, right, you'll see that you can kind of start typing in a table like a spreadsheet, but it's not exactly like a spreadsheet. Like for instance, I can't copy this row here and try to paste this entire row here. It won't let me do that. Oh yeah, actually it will. Ah, I never do that. Don't ever actually do that. You'll see I can't click and drag to select the row. There we go. And then copy here. There's a reason for that because, again, this is database. Now, you do have some controls over here where you can control the font size. So if I wanted to view this font larger, I could. Let's say this column here, I want it wider, and then I want to center the column. I can. Let's say I even want to change the text color for some reason. So let's make first name larger. I can change the text color. Notice it changed the text of all of it. I can do that. Now, you may be bummed out by realizing that there aren't a lot of options on this table. So as I'm trying to do this, as I'm messing with this, there's not a lot of stuff you can do. That's okay. This table is only to hold data. The primary purpose of it is not for you to go in and start typing things, not directly at least. Again, the table is just to hold your data. So you can type in as many fields as you want, and if you wish to add more fields, you can go back to design mode. Now, again, you can hit the view design mode, you can right click and go to design mode, or you can come down here. There's multiple ways to get to a table's design mode, or actually you can right click this guy and go to design mode. And so again, so here's the first concept that your brain has to wrap around, is that the items we're going up and down on are the columns across as we start to enter in the data. So for instance, if I wanted to put in birth city, and it's just going to be a city, birth, state, would also be short text, birth year, and of course I'm not going to put in, birth year will be a number, right? So you can hit Control S to save. Let's view it in datasheet mode. Now we have our additional columns here that we put in. So if I said I was born in, I don't know, Seattle, Washington, and the year was 2000, I wish, right? The items that we're putting in here in this left-hand column in design mode become your spreadsheet that holds the table. Now, this is just the beginning, super beginning intro to database tables. They get a lot more complex when you start talking data design. This is just the beginning. There are rules associated with tables, but for now, let's just keep it super simple. So I'm going to close this table. It's asking me to save changes. I'm going to hit no. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to create just a new table. If you would like, you can follow along and create your own table. So we want to go to table designs, and we're going to make a table of colors. Now, remember I said we might get to primary keys? Well, here's a primary key. Now, what is a primary key? A primary key in database land is an identifier that lets you uniquely identify that row, that entire row. Primary keys cannot duplicate. So you can only have one key in an entire table, and you can never duplicate it if it's your primary key. So for instance, people think their social security number is unique. If you do the math, it's actually not. There's more people in the US than the social security numbers will handle. So in the United States, at least, the way to uniquely identify someone is their social security number and their name combined. That would be called a primary key. So if you take my name, you were to add my social security number to it, there should be no one else in the United States with that combination of name and social security number. Now in database land, it can work similar to that, or it can be very simple. So what I suggest, if this is your first table, is just type the word ID in here, and the data type that you want to make for your primary key is an auto number. And here, this column is just description. You'll notice it says optional. I put PK for primary key, and then I hit this little button up here that says, okay, that's my primary key. And now you'll notice there's a little key icon that appears next to this row and this row only, or this field rather. And now, again, we're talking about making our tables. Remember what I said before about when we're making our tables, they're very specific to their subject. In this example, if you want to follow along, we're going to make a table of colors, and you'll see why soon. So this is really rad. Again, we're starting, oh, I'm getting excited already, right? So we're going to make a table of colors. So now again, you're in design mode. You're not inputting the colors themselves, you're designing the layout of the table. So one of the columns we need an ID key, and we need the name of the color. So let's just do color name. You want to avoid using the word name. That is restricted, that is a reserved word, I believe. I'm pretty sure in Access and maybe other databases. So you always want to do color name. It's going to be a short text, and we can just type in the description, name of the color. Pretty simple. Let's go to view design sheet. It's going to ask me to save even though you don't see the window. Hit yes. And I'm going to name this table TBL colors. And so now you see the name of the table, TBL colors, and now we can start inputting our colors. So you can put in as many as you want. I would suggest at least 3. So let's go with blue, yellow, orange, green, and white, and black, and purple. Cool. Now we have just created our first table, which is a database table of colors. Pretty simple, right? It does get way more complex later on, but for now, we have it right. And this is a properly designed database table. Now, again, when you're viewing this mode, if you would like to customize it a little bit, you can center your columns. If you wish, you can change the font size to a little bit larger. But again, you will primarily not be using the raw table like this to interface with your database. This is just to get you started. But we have a proper table. Now notice you didn't have to put in the number for the ID. That was an auto number, right? And you'll see in later episodes how primary keys work. They're absolutely magical and they let you do all kinds of rad stuff. But for now, just note that you didn't have to put in the primary key. It automatically appears because it's an auto number. Let's go back to design mode and we'll see that that's an auto number. It's our primary key. And what that means is, because this is primary, I will never have another 6 in this column ever again. As a matter of fact, watch this. Let's delete. So we're going to highlight this row. I'm going to right click and delete the record, is what it's called, a record or a row. It's going to warn me, even though you don't see it. I promise it's there. I'm going to hit yes. Now let's type purple again, and you're going to notice something even interesting. Watch this. It gave it the primary key of 8. It gave it an auto number of 8, even though 7 does not exist, and you would think 7 would come back. Because of things later on, it does not reuse auto numbers ever. Your auto numbers will never be used. And you may ask, well, how long is an auto number? It's a very large figure. I will look it up later. Trust me, you're not going to run out of auto numbers. But they will never repeat. So don't freak out if you're looking at a table and you know they're auto numbers and they're out of order, right? They skip numbers. There's a reason for that, is auto number primary keys are never reused. As a matter of fact, if you don't use an auto number for a primary key, it's highly suggested you never repeat your primary key. So 99 out of 100 times, if you don't know what you need for a primary key, just use an auto number. Just go to your design view. Just the field name is called ID. The type of field it is an auto number. Make that your primary key. Hit your primary key button, and you're good to go. And so there we have it. Now, we've learned how to make it. Now here's the difference between table design, that button, and table. So let's go back to this. If I hit create and I hit table, it's going to dump me into that initial screen we saw before when we first opened Access. The problem with this is, yes, you can click to add. You may get kind of mixed up as to what's going on. Some people prefer to add their fields like this. It's very similar to how maybe SharePoint works or Access. I personally, all the time, go to table design, right? So I want to see the fields that I'm adding, and then I go to datasheet view to fill those fields out if required. What I don't do is start in normal table mode. Other people can, though. It's no big deal. So let's just do that just for completeness sake. So you'll notice that in this mode, it gives me an ID already. I don't have to type that. And then I'm going to add a field that is a short text called color name, right? And again, we're doing the same thing as we did before. So if you hit blue, yellow, orange, green, whatever, right? You'll notice we did the same thing that we did before. Now, even though this is a table of colors, I already have another table of colors. As long as I name it something else, that's fine. Table colors 2. You'll notice I have now a table colors 2 over here in these are my objects in the database right now. So if I double click table colors, it opens up. You'll notice this is the one we customized with a larger font. If I open table colors 2, same thing. A little bit different way to design. I personally prefer to go to table design. That way I can specifically type out the fields and then I go to data entry. But other people, you may prefer just to go to table, and that's fine too. Now then, let me check my, oh yeah, the difference. Oh, basic parts of a table. So now we're going to get into something a little more technical, but it's not that hard. There's only a few basic parts of a database table. So if you can imagine now, I don't know how old my audience is, a Rolodex or a stack of index cards. And on those index cards is a person's name, their age, their birth city, etc. Right? So in database land, a row or a record is one complete index card. So if I go over here to my, let's imagine this is an index card or this is a container of index cards. The table is the container of the index cards. This entire first row is a record or an entire card. So this is, sometimes you'll hear or read the phrase row, sometimes you'll read the phrase record. For our purposes, they're the same exact thing. Now, within each record or within on each index card are what you would call fields or columns. So for instance, this table has the fields first name, last name, age, birth city, birth date, and birth year. Those are the fields. If you go to the table's design view, again, those are the fields. Field name, first name, last name, etc., etc. So going back to our example of an index card, the field is one part of that index card. Now, you have to realize this is where you have to get out of thinking like this is Excel. When you add a field to a table, all of the records get that field. So you could have, let's say you have 2,000 people in here, and you're like, well, sometimes I don't put their age in, and sometimes I do. Well, it doesn't matter. This table has the age field. It's going to be blank or maybe default to 0. You don't get to choose which records have which fields. If the record is in the table, it has all the fields. So for example, if I go to, let's switch over to, here's my sample, Excel file. I can do anything I want. So let's pretend I'm doing an Excel full of people, and I just wanted to do this. I just wanted to do name. I'm sorry. Let's do first. Let's zoom this in so you guys can actually see what's going on here. Okay. First name, last name, and age, right? So let's say I wanted to do Jeremy Smith, 48, right? And then later on, I'm making a new record or person in Excel. I could just do first name, age, right? And this is, maybe this guy is Wilson and he's 27, right? So in Excel, you can kind of willy-nilly, it's just a blank canvas. That's not how database tables work. If you put the age field in a table, all records will have access to that field, even if they don't use it. You can't choose to disregard age as a field in a record. They all get the age field. You can use it or not, but it's still there. So that's one of the differences. And now an index, this, we will get into this in future episodes. An index is a hidden kind of cheat sheet that makes your tables work extraordinarily fast. So that's why one of the reasons database exists is that they're much, much, much faster than looking stuff up in Excel or some other non-indexed kind of search system. And then the table itself, again, is like the container. If you had a bunch of index cards, each row or each record is a complete index card. The container holding those index cards is the table. So for instance, if we put in multiple people here, let's come in, put in Jim Wilson, and he's 27, and he's from Mobile, Alabama, I think. I'm not sure. And he was born a long time ago. So this entire table, or all of these records, the collection of all these records is the table. So this is called table people. If we look, we have 2 records of people. This table contains 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 fields. If we choose to add more, we can go to design and just type the fields here. So let's do field 7, right? And it's short text. Now let's look at it in datasheet. Oh, there's my new field here. And I can put in whatever. So again, this is just the intro course for tables. There's way more involvement, but for now, if you would. Okay, sorry, I'm back. I had to pause because an alarm went off. Technical difficulty. For now, let's just keep it to your table of colors. because we're going to use this in future episodes. Thanks so much. I really hope you enjoyed this. And that's it. We've kind of already covered spreadsheet versus table. Tables are much more strict and structured in a database than what an Excel is in, or a spreadsheet is in, say, for instance, Excel. Hope you have a great time. If you found this video useful, please consider subscribing. More episodes to follow. If you are following along with how to learn this, the next episode you should watch is episode 2.1, which is form basics. Thanks and have a great day.